And welcome back to Cheyenne Life. This is Debbie, and you're just seeing a picture of part of my stove at the moment because, again, I'm not using any special equipment. I'm not editing a whole lot, so we're doing this as is. Maybe one day I'll actually do a live video, but I've gotten all of my vegetables minced up, and I'll show you those in just a moment. And right now I am just gathering up my spices because we will need the thyme and we will need the nutmeg and things like that. So if you can see me now, I've gotten my vegetables all minced up. As you can see, the celery, the onions, carrots, and I'm just now getting ready to get some garlic out. And I just used the minced garlic from Sam's Club. Let me just go ahead and grab that. If I can find it. It seems like when you get in a refrigerator, you can never find anything, especially if you're a prepper like we are. So let me go ahead and grab that. And I just found it. So I guess everyone can have a good laugh because they're kind of just in the kitchen with me. And you'll see me passing back and forth because I am getting my ingredients. Anyway, back in the shot, I guess. And like I said, I just used the Members Mark Sam's Club and just a spoon. And I'm a rough estimate kind of girl on the amount of garlic. It calls for 2 cloves, and again I double, so it's going to be 4 cloves. So I just, give a heaping teaspoon is what my figure is. And I just go ahead and mix that into the rest of my vegetables, which is again the celery, the carrots, and the onions. And just stir that up. And we'll leave that sitting for just a moment while we go ahead and heat up. And I'm just going to put the pan on medium-high to get it heated up. And I already have my flour here waiting. And I believe that it called for a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And we're actually going to be using a 1/2 cup because, again, I'm doubling the recipe. So let me just go ahead and grab the 1/2 cup measure. All right, and we've got that measured out. And yes, I just get it directly out of the bag. I don't have any fancy bins or anything. We just use the flour bags here. And now I'm going to get out my 1/2 and 1/2, which I keep in the fridge until it is necessary. Because, food safety. All right, and we have that. Again, it's just going to be a 1/2 gallon or 2 quarts of 1/2 and 1/2. And of course, you can make the 1/2 and 1/2. 1/2 and 1/2 is just heavy cream or cream with the other 1/2 being milk. So you do 1/2 cream, 1/2 milk. And we're going to need the whole stick of butter. And it looks like I still have a large block of butter because back when COVID just hit, we went ahead and got these large things of butter because that's all we use. We do not use margarine. We don't use anything like that because, well, even though I'm a larger woman, we do try to stay as healthy as possible here in the house and use whole ingredients for everything that we do instead of processed ingredients that we don't know what they are. Food substances, that's I guess if you want to call it that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get that butter cut up into a little bit smaller chunks so it's easier to melt. And again, we use this to eat on throughout the week, so it's not like this is going to be all eaten in one evening. And I'm just using I think this is an 8-quart or 10-quart stock pot. You could use a smaller pot, but I have a tendency to have it boil over if I do that, especially if it's a milk product, because it does boil and froth quite readily, so I don't tend to use that. I use the larger pots, even though it doesn't make a whole pot full. And I'm going to go ahead and grab out my olive oil. Because we'll need 2 tablespoons of that. And again, I measure it. I don't really measure it out, but 2 tablespoons is generally what it calls for. And that helps your butter to keep from popping everywhere, keeps it on an even keel. And that is extra virgin olive oil, also Member's Mark. I tend to get the organic. All right, and that is already pretty much melted down. And you're going to take your 1/2 cup of flour. Go ahead and add it on in. Give it just a moment. You don't have to be in an extreme hurry, but with flour, making a roux, you want to have a tendency to stir it often. So I'm going to go ahead and grab out a wooden spoon. It's what I generally use. And get that moving around a little bit better and making up that roux. And with these stock pots, you don't want to put them on full high because they have a tendency to burn whatever's in the bottom because they are thinner metal, even though they are stainless steel. Alright, you just want to give that a little bit to cook, just a few seconds. It doesn't take very long. And that'll go ahead and get a nice golden consistency. And then you go ahead and put in your vegetables. Go ahead and give that a stir and just keep stirring it. And while that is doing that, then I'm going to go ahead and strain out the gnocchi. The gnocchi I put the water on to boil. You want the water to be boiling, a rolling boil, before you put the gnocchi in. And when the gnocchi floats to the top is when it is done, and it only takes a couple of moments or a couple of minutes to get that done. So I'm going to go ahead and grab down a strainer. We do have a pot rack and a strainer right here. And again, that is the spinach gnocchi. And go ahead and strain that off, and you can just leave it sitting for a little bit while you're getting the other ingredients ready until you need the gnocchi. It will keep pretty well. And stay hydrated. I have actually recently just given up soda. This has been the second time that I've given up soda. It's actually the third time. The first time I only lasted about a month before I started drinking soda again. But the second time I gave it up for 2 years and had an issue with my esophagus and had to go into the hospital. And one of the things that they said would help the esophagus to relax is to drink soda, and also to give a pill of nitrous or nitroglycerin So that helped, and didn't end up having to have surgery or anything. So go ahead and give that another stir. Cut the heat down to probably, on my stove it is an electric, so I cut it down to 4 or 5. And it's inevitable you're going to have a little bit along the edges that is going to stick. All right. And then of course you're going to cook that for a little bit again. You want that until the onion gets kind of translucent and starts to leak out fluid. And then you want to go ahead and put in your half and half. And of course it's pretty difficult to try not to get it to splash unless you have a funnel or something. And I have funnels, but at the moment I just want to get it in there. Alright, so that is the half and half in. And I have a tendency to clean as I go along cooking because I don't like a huge mess afterwards. Alright, and what you want to do with this is just let it simmer for a little bit until the sauce starts to thicken up. And then once that starts to thicken up just slightly, I mean it doesn't even have to be very long because you've got this already pretty warm, and it almost starts to thicken up right away. You just want to keep stirring it so that way you break up the clumps because they're the flour in the vegetables, and the vegetables tend to clump together when they are cooking. And I'm going to just put it back up on 8 so that way it starts to thicken up a little quicker. And while you were waiting for me to come back to the video and do part 2, I went ahead and got my spinach. And this is actually pretty small spinach. This is a patch that I had planted and it got too hot outside, and it had a tendency to go to bolt before it was actually making leaves very much. But all in all, that was plenty of spinach to go into the recipe, and I went ahead and got that out. So I'll go ahead and continue on with part 3.